Thanks for logging on to MyFoxHurricane.com. So there's a lot going on in the tropics, but we're going to focus in on this storm here. This is Tropical Depression number 9, which is expected to become Hermine. Now, I say expected because we also have Tropical Depression number 10, which is way out in the Atlantic, just off the coast of Africa. And it's a little bit of a race to see which one gets to the name Hermine. If this is not Hermine, this will become Ian. But for the time being, this is Tropical Depression number 9. And I was talking about this yesterday. We had that strong wind shear, which was affecting this system. And once it moved out of that area, things were going to change with this. And it did not take much time at all. Just as it was exiting out of that stronger core of wind shear, we saw this big flare up of convection through the overnight hours. Now, it will continue to improve as we go through the next several days because it's just now exiting out of that stronger wind shear. And so what we're going to see, at least for now, is this exposed center right there. And you look at all the storms, really deep convection is all sitting on that western side. So as it continues to move into that lower wind shear environment, these storms, they're going to start to wrap right around the center of this. And once that happens, this storm is really going to be off to the races. There's plenty of moisture. There's plenty of energy in the atmosphere, and the sea surface temperatures, they are warm. So plenty of warm water in place, but really an amazing looking view here where you can look right into that super high resolution visible satellite imagery. We can see the center right there, and then that deeper convection sitting on that side. So that's why you see the icon sitting just to the east of all that convection. Right now, winds are only at 35 miles an hour. We've only had our second advisory on this, so things will obviously be changing a lot more as we go through the coming days. So you really have to stay tuned as we go through the weekend to see how this develops. But now that we have this center, we can really start to fine-tune this forecast, and we're already starting to do that. We're getting more and more information. Hurricane Hunter planes, they've been flying into this system, and what we're looking at is a system working its way through the Caribbean into the Western Caribbean, and then making that gradual turn to the north, moving over the western end of Cuba. By this point, we're talking about most likely a Category 2 hurricane, and then working its way up towards the state, and that curve, that bend, that's going to tell us a lot of what's going to happen with this, because if this doesn't turn as quickly, well, it can head further up the coastline. A turn more, or a quicker turn, will take it further down to our south. So it's a wait and see at this point. But I can tell you the models are starting to become more and more locked in that somewhere along the Florida West Coast, we are talking about a hurricane making landfall. And it looks like right now from central to south Florida really looks like the most likely scenario. But we will continue to fine tune this forecast over the next several days. So you look at the heat potential. We've got this very warm water, very light wind shear across the Western Caribbean, and it's going to be moving through this area. And that's why we're really, I think by that point, we're going to see this storm really ramp up in intensity just prior to making landfall across Cuba. There you see more and more consensus with these models. Remember a couple of days ago, these were just all over the place, so you're starting to see them focus in. Now, it will still continue to change a little bit as we go through the next several days, so don't get married to one particular idea just yet. But this weekend, you need to review your plans, maybe top off any supplies that you may need if a storm was coming in our direction. And then you just kind of wait and see how this is all going to work its way out. So we look at the various models. We've got the European, we've got the GFS, and the Fox model, our own exclusive Fox model, which is in green here. And you see they're basically sitting right on top of each other in the short term, and they are all showing that idea that it's moving just to the north of due west, working its way south of Jamaica over towards Cayman Islands, and then over into the western end of Cuba. This is by early on Monday, moving its way over Cuba. And it's still that same thing that we're talking about, that developing trough across the East Coast, and the timing of that and how strong that is. And I will tell you, over the last several model runs, the trend has been that this trough continues to become a little bit stronger. So a little bit stronger tends to steer this storm more onto that northeasterly track. That's why we've seen that change from, remember yesterday, we were talking maybe somewhere along the northern Gulf Coast. Was that possibility? Well, that is starting to go away and is really starting to focus in more along the Florida coastline. So that long range forecast still will be changed because a landfall down here or a landfall up here, that is a big difference as far as what we would feel here in central Florida. The white being the European, the red being the GFS. So you can see the European still much further to the south. So bottom line is, things will continue to fine tune and change, but you do want to have your hurricane plan ready should you need to enact it, and you want to go ahead and top off any of those supplies as well. Of course, we're going to keep you updated right here on myfoxhurricane.com.